Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 15 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Edward Navan, co-founder and CVO of The Covery. And The Covery is a destination for immersive wellness. Their mission is to keep their members and communities healthy and productive through a variety of services for the mind and body. And we're going to talk to Edward about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 15 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Edward Navan, the co-founder and chief visionary officer of The Covery. And The Covery is a destination for immersive wellness. Their mission is to keep their members and communities healthy and productive through a variety of services for the mind and the body. Hi, Edward. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good, Marty. Thanks for having me today.
This is my pleasure, Edward. I was very excited to have you on the show. You know, when I learned about your concept, we always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Edward?
I'm calling from Baton Rouge, Louisiana this morning.
Oh, nice. Is it starting to warm up down there a bit?
It is. We go straight from, I think it's winter to about summer down here.
Yes,
yeah.
You do, don't you? That's funny.
Absolutely.
Oh, you have. I was saying earlier. I mean, you really have a great story. Maybe you can kind of go back to the evolution of The Covery and how this whole idea even came about.
Yeah, I mean, the Covery is actually our second franchise. We started in the fitness space with a concept called Regimen Fitness, which has done very well for us. And you know, the Covery has always been an idea I've had for how do you recover from working out? You know, how do you perform a little bit better? And quite frankly, you know, pre-COVID, the Covery was going to be a lot of compression, cryotherapy, red light. And when COVID hit, it completely and totally changed my mindset and all my partners and my team's mindsets of, for the first time ever, we all have these things in common, but for the first time ever, stress became just the focus.
Yes.
Stress is going to manage itself physically or emotionally, you know?
Right.
So during COVID itself is really said it needs to be more than just athletic recovery. This needs to be stress reduction, lifestyle optimization. It's a myriad of things. So ultimately, it was really going out of necessity, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Your market is huge, Edward. I was wondering, I mean, up to this point, I mean, who have been, your customers? So as you were mentioned earlier, it's not just athletes or people, that work out in a gym. It seems like anyone can use your services, but, who've been your common customers up to this point?
And to your point, it's been shocking to us. When we first did this, we thought we would get a lot of athletic people, a lot of weekend warriors coming in, but the reality is the demographic for this is if you're living, breathing, and walking, you are a potential, your demographic for us because it absolutely is. And I know that sounds, that probably sounds outrageous to a lot of people out there, but if you think about your daily life, everything to constant bombardments of stress, to family demands, to I always like to say life is a sport. You need to and that's what we're doing.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And you have so many different services, Edward. I mean, maybe, you could talk about some of the different services. I was on your website over the weekend, and I saw all these different services. Maybe, you could talk about some of them to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And the services we have been around for, really pretty much forever. They've stood the test of time, but now we're just starting to see some of the white paper implications of these things. And so, our service, we have several different things. We attack this from an aesthetic level all the way to a wellness and to an athletic recovery. And what I mean by that is one of our primary IV therapy. And the public is starting to see a lot more IV places out there. And the reality is, if you were, God forbid, if you were to get hurt today, whether it's, breaking an arm or, slipping and falling, and you get in an ambulance for any reason, one of the first things they're going to do is put an IV in you.
Right, and of course.
It doesn't really matter for what. And so with us, IVs is really the start because we tell people, hey, this is going to help you focus. It helps the skin. It helps you think clear. So we start with IVs, but we don't end there. We realize that every treatment partners with another treatment. And what I mean by that is you've got to have some type of outcome-based therapies. So a lot of people have pain. And for that, we'll do cryotherapy. Cryotherapy is fantastic because it's people get in this cold chamber and it's a dry cold, and everyone freaks out. They think, "Oh my God, it's cold!" It is.
Yeah.
We can't sugarcoat that. It's cold, but it's a dry cold. And when you get out, you're essentially what has happened is all the blood from your extremities rushes to your core, and because your brain wants to protect your vital organs. But when you get out of that cryo, you can jump through the freaking building if you want. The pain relief it hits that vagus nerve and it helps that lower back release. It's an amazing therapy overall. There's even skincare benefits to it, metabolic benefits. So again, I could go off forever, but we start with IVs. We have cryotherapy. We bring in things like PE, which is pulse electronic magnetic field therapies. What PEMF does essentially is at a cellular level, it re-energizes these cells. At the end of the day, we're a collection of cells. We're a collection of atoms and cells and energies. And
that's right.
There's that old adage of what you put into your body, you'll get out of it. So again, we'll go back IV, hydrate you, cryotherapy for pain relief, for energy, things like PEMF for cellular optimization, hyperbaric oxygen chambers in there. We use those. Yeah, those are, people laugh all the time when they come in because they're like, hey, I used to hear like Michael Jackson would do that. Or,
exactly. What you think of,
You think of all these celebrities and you're like, okay, these are kind of, a lot of people look at what these celebrities and entertainers and that's a little out there. And, human nature is to run away from what we don't understand. And with ask me to run towards it, because everything we have in there is about optimizing of life, optimizing of performance. It's fantastic. And for aesthetics, we have things like CryoScan, where we can help, lose fat. We suggest, obviously, we want you to work out. We want you to lead a healthy lifestyle. But sometimes, we do like donuts and margaritas. So, a little CryoScan is not going to hurt you.
Right.
And so, again, we have just so many different treatments we have right now is the use of light therapy and frequencies. And that has been huge for mental health. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but the use of light and sound just to help you sleep better, to help you think clear. So everything in the Covery is designed to either make you better, you're going to feel better, you're going to perform better. Everything in it is designed to re-energize and re-engage life.
It's like you say, Edward. I mean, it's so competitive out there, and people are it seems like we're working longer hours these days. I always, joke around with my business students. I mean, I remember my dad. I mean, he typically worked. He never worked later than 4:30, 5 o'clock, and he was always home for dinner, and people are just, it seems like everybody is constantly working today. And as you said, it's so competitive out there. And life, I like how you mentioned this, has really become, it's almost like a sport, to some extent, and it's just really so exciting. It's almost like this will be the new coffee. There's a great book out there. It's called Blue Ocean Strategy, and when I was thinking of your model, I said, wow, I said, this is something new. This is it's a new marketplace. It's almost like going to be like the new coffee one day. You know what I mean? To give you energy, and it's just I think it's so exciting. I imagine that there's a lot of technology in your business model. I mean, how does technology play a role with the Covery, Edward?
And that's a very interesting. It's a great question. It's an interesting question. And if we look at it, you think about all these stresses we have today. Almost every stress we have today can be linked with an improvement in technology. And I'm not knocking technology. It's phenomenal, obviously.
Right.
But we talk about the Covery and using technology, and our whole thing is we want you to come in and unplug to recharge. Now,
yes.
That being said, you've seen these things. You've seen these things like Oura Ring out there, and even I love Billions on Showtime, for example. And this year alone, they had an Oura Ring concept in there. Now they've got like a light sound concept in there.
Yeah.
So the way we're embracing technology right now to try to help people gauge their results, to really show measurable results. And what I mean by that is we now have technology that can measure sleep. Sleep is, you hit on that earlier. I'm 44. I built my career off bragging about working until, midnight and then getting up at 4 a.m. to do personal training all day. And it's like, where was the diminishing point of returns there? Obviously, it wasn't well rested enough. So to not go too far down the rabbit hole, with technology, we are testing a technology right now that measures the person's, their sleep, their deep sleep, their light sleep, how many movements they make, how much they wake up. And then that has a direct effect on their HRV, or their heart rate variability, which shows us truly how is your body responding to stress. So our goal with technology is to bring people in our doors and in real time show them a recovery level that improves from things like cryotherapy and lymphatic drainage and hyperbaric. So we want people to understand, hey, when you travel and you're on the road, this is a constant stress to your body. So for years, and I know I'm all over, but coming from a fitness background, it's always been workout. Well, technology is now showing us you don't have to run yourself into the ground. If you wake up and your body says, hey, I'm a 30 out of 100 on the scale of recovery, going to that gym is not what you need to pick up that day. You need to relax. So I think technology for us is going to be about embracing it, and embracing it of use it as a guide map. And I'll shut up after this, but I laugh because I use this tech, and when I use it and I wake up in the morning, I might feel like I've slept great, but it'll tell me, hey, you didn't sleep that good. So automatically my mindset's oh man. So I think we have to be careful not to use technology as a crutch, but more as a measuring tool in this business.
Wow, it's impressive,
It is, and the use of there's some very cool things out there. We use technology called BrainTap, and BrainTap's something that we want you to just get in 15 to 20 minutes a day. If you can get in some clarity with this BrainTap, essentially it's going to have you breathe better. It's going to have you visualize better. It all has to do with the mental waves in the body, the things like, I'm sure you've heard of like the alpha wave, the theta wave, the delta wave, things like that.
Sure.
This technology helps us understand what each wave is really doing to our body. And in turn, it's kind of helping us be a more intuitive mind. It's helping us to realize 20 minutes of quiet time to just refocus is going to give me 3 hours of productivity. So, again,
right.
I mean, it's very interesting in this market. If you look at what's happening in this space, we expect the wellness industry to be, the self-care essentially, to be valued around $13 billion by 2026. Now, here's the wow part, though. When you factor technology into that, it now becomes a $450 billion. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I love what we're seeing in technology. I love the fact we're seeing like hyper-ice guns on CBS comedies, and we're seeing people go to light therapies for spas. So I think technology is going to push the envelope, and I think the entertainment world, the people that are out there that are doing this, it's going to be household practice within the next 3 years.
It's fascinating. What's been a tough question, Edward, but what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since launching the Covery? I'm sure you probably have 100 stories. I'm sure COVID was probably up there. I mean, we've seen a lot of businesses shift and a lot of new business ideas come about through COVID. But does anything stand out since launching the business that you kind of say, wow?
It does. For me, it's the rush to this space. This is This is by no means an industry. It's been out there, but it's been fragmented.
Right.
I used to call it Gilligan's Island. I would cryo, then I would go get an IV, and a red light would be at 3 hours.
Right.
But I think the surprise to me has been how much people have been open to learn about these things. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people have always looked at the light therapy, and I have too. Look at things like light therapy and cryotherapy as that's tree hugger, snake oil stuff. And I think, to me, the biggest surprise to this space. You got guys like Tony Robbins out there right now, Jeff Bezos. Right. Jeff Bezos is putting tens of billions of dollars behind this, trying to figure out how do we create these, how do we create these superhumans? How do we introduce things like stem cells to help us? And I think the biggest shock to me has been how fast this is coming. A year and a half ago, nobody really cared about cryotherapy. Fitness and wellness, it's all the rage to get there. So I would say my biggest shock is how fast it's happening.
Do you think that's because of COVID, Edward? Like, I mean, I've noticed, since it's happened, I mean, people have changed, I mean, as far as like, what's important to them, like you hear so much more today about life balance because, I think a lot of people started working from home and things like that. So do you think all of this is attributed to that, or?
I absolutely do. I think COVID taught us a lot to refocus on our lives and taught us what's valuable, but more than anything else, COVID gave people a lot more time to, in working from home, to go out and experience new things. Yes. And you got outside of your little cubicle office world. A lot of people got out there. We started to share different ideas. So absolutely, a rush of this is COVID, and I think the other of this is it's education in the public's eye. And what I mean by that is, I want to make sure when I do get older and, I have more time to enjoy my life, that I'm performing at these higher levels. So I think our society as a whole has looked at this and said, you know what? It's not all about working 9 to 5 and shutting things down. It's about being able to perform. And more than anything else, if I take care of myself, I'm not going to be stuck in this position I'm at. If I take care of myself, my energy is better. The world's kind of it's wide open to me. So ultimately, I think COVID was critical. I say this all the time, Marty. I think business right now moves at the speed of social media, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
It does, and we're seeing blitz scaling happening universally. We're seeing people rush things out where it's tough because you don't necessarily have time to perfect everything before you put it out there. But at the same time, the science and the technology is coming so fast. It's just kind of like, okay, we know this is safe. We know this is effective. What's the evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's powerful. And at some point, then you and your business partner, Edward, you decided to franchise the concept. what types of characteristics, or what's important to you when taking on a new franchisee, as far as like maybe characteristics or traits? What do you look for?
Absolutely. That's a loaded question. It's a difficult question to answer, because out of the gate, the most important thing for a franchisor out of the gates is market share. It's how do I get out to the market fast? But then, when you look at that path and you just want to grow fast, you don't always necessarily have time to pick the right franchisees. And your first couple of franchisees are essential. I remember when we got into this, we were so excited to have people interested in the product.
Yeah.
You tend not to take a deep enough dive into that. A lot of franchises cannot take a deep enough dive into that person. And the important characteristics for us of a franchisee is somebody that is entrepreneurial, but they're entrepreneurial in the sense to respect they don't know what they don't know. They want to run their business and guide that from the outside. So it's somebody that's entrepreneurial, but at the same time understands that there's going to be certain processes that absolutely have to be done, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. Our franchisees with Regimen have been fantastic. Having a fitness concept during COVID has always been tough, and a lot of them have even adapted to this concept of wellness to complement it. But I think with them, a good franchisee always understands that day by day is completely and totally different. They need to be able to handle what I like to call a bipolarness that comes along with owning a franchise. You have the highest up and the lowest of lows. And I think for franchisees, for us, when we talk to them, we're saying, look, we're going to have some major wins, and we want to celebrate those wins, but not for too long. We want to go ahead and move to the next phase of it. So the best is somebody that's resilient, somebody that has ideas but doesn't mind being coached into how they work better. And third is, capital. And you can't outsmart people in your business. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. So that best franchise they have to look at their life. They have to look at everything they're doing and say, am I willing to lose X, Y, Z? Because if I'm willing to lose X, Y, Z, I know I'm going to make an infinite amount. I'm going to have a much better life because
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's great. And what about the training, Edward? I mean, how would that work then? I mean, would they come to, once you decide you like them, they like you, and they do want to become a franchisee, would they come out to corporate for training? How does that work, or what would that include?
Yeah, so absolutely. So once we get somebody, that's really interested in this product, we insist that they come down for a couple of days, because you've got to live it, breathe it, feel it. And once they come down for that discovery day, they come back and say, hey, this is definitely a fit for me. So if it's a fit for them and a fit for us, what we do is we bring them into Baton Rouge or HQ, and we spend roughly 40 to 50 hours over the course of a week training them on every aspect of, from the onboarding to the technology to meeting our MD, meeting our nurses, and understanding, hey, this is exactly who I have to hire. This is the personality I want. So they come out on-site training with us, and then once they leave, they actually go into a pre-sale, because we like our franchisees to already have an established, membership base when their doors open in their market. So we teach them how to pre-sale and work with that. And then right before they open their doors, about 2 weeks before, we send our medical team out and our modality/therapy team out. And that consists of our nurses and some of our specialty trainers. We go out on site and we spend 3 to 4 days with that franchisee, teaching them all the ins and outs of what's going to happen when they open their doors. And then once they open their doors up, obviously it's all about communication. It's making sure we're supporting them and that they understand the reasons we're doing things. They understand the campaigns we're rolling out. So it is very training intensive. There's monthly webinars. Yeah. This is a space where education wins everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine. Right. Because I guess the technology even changes over time too, doesn't it, Edward, at some point? We're constantly learning new things, aren't we?
It absolutely does. This, like we talked about blue oceans, I'm a huge fan of, Simon Sinek when he talks about a finite and infinite mindset. He's great. And this is very much so an infinite mindset, but, you have the wiggle room because medical laws change, in every state. So, for us, we have a team of attorneys that works around the clock with us just so that we can be ready when these things happen, and the franchisees can be as well.
That's terrific. What because you've been doing this for a while now, Edward, how would you paint the picture, or, describe a typical day for a Covery franchisee?
Absolutely. They get up in that morning, and most of them are going to do, most of our franchisees are 100% bought into these therapies themselves. They're already doing this, and now it's theirs.
Right.
So a typical franchisee will wake up early, they'll go in, they'll hit their hyperbaric, they'll get their therapies in, they'll get their emails done, their phone calls done. And, when the day starts, there's truly two different types of owners. There's the on-site, I'm going to run this thing myself every single day, and then there's that owner that is a little bit more absentee but has a full operations team. So, for that hands-on owner, they're in these spas probably 9 o'clock to about 6 o'clock or 6:30 at night. And when they're in there, it's interesting to own, because there's a lot of things you can do, but there's also a lot of things you administer an IV as an owner. You can't prescribe these things. You have to, you rely 100% on your staff. So what you're doing as an owner in the Covery is you're building a community. You're finding out why these people are here. And a lot of these people are very influential business owners within your community. So a lot of that franchisee's job is networking, meeting other business owners, telling people, hey, here's how I feel, sharing their story. And you mentioned it. It's like hanging out at Starbucks all day, because here's the coolest part about the Covery. When you walk in, you're walking in, I always tell people, you might out. There's nothing you can do inside of our four walls that's not going to make you feel instantly better. Wow. So that's what you're doing as a franchisor, is you're facilitating that all day. And, you're working with your team. You're training them. You're listening to insights from them. So it's a full day. It's 24/7. I tell everybody, when you get into a franchise, your free time is gone, because any business owners, it's constantly in that brain. So make damn sure you love it. Make sure that is all you want. It's powerful.
Well, in studying your background, Edward, you certainly seem to me as, you're an entrepreneur. From everything you've learned up to this point, because you have experience in franchising, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because now, there's so much out there today. There's all these different systems and all these different models. And we found in doing the show 15 years that, a lot of our listeners in the beginning phase or early phase, they're confused. They don't even know where to begin. There's like, oh my God, there's so much out there. From everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners then in their quest to buy a franchise?
You got to get through all the shiny stuff. And I say that of every franchise job. Our job is to sell franchises, and it's also to sell successful franchises. So I would say, for anybody looking into it, first of all, you need to understand who the founders are, because look at their background, talk to them, understand how they think, because how they think is how that brand is going to go. Then you got to look at their entire operations. Look at the team that's supporting this. Do they have a robust enough infrastructure where they are? And what's their plan to support it as they grow? Those are definitely important questions to ask for any franchisee. Another thing is, you got to look at it and say, hey, am I going to love this 5 years and 10 years from now? Because again, you're not buying a franchise for 3 years. You're passionate about it. That's what concerns me. A lot of times these franchises are sold out there through a lot of different networks, and that end buyer might like you. And they might end up with, a wellness spa. Well, that's a big stretch. So you've got to understand, as that buyer, what is it, like you said, that you want to do every single day? And then the last thing is, take a hard look at yourself. And what I mean by that is, really look at your finance. Look at what you've got in your retirement. Is this a risk that you are willing to take? Because again, a lot of franchises sell the dream of just buying a job. That's not it. And I'll shut up. But the last thing you got to look at as a potential franchisee is, what are you really buying into? Are you looking, are you wanting to just do one store? And if you do one store, is there enough revenue? Are the economics right that you can serve for a loan and get exactly what you want to out of it? Or are you going to have to buy 3, 4, and 5 of these things? And if you are, how do you plan on developing that? So you got to ask a lot of tough questions. I always tell people, get over being excited for a second. Look at the other side of it. Are the turnoffs enough to make you think, I don't think I want to do this? If that's the case, you shouldn't do it. but you really have to go with your gut. And closing this, every decision as he makes, you got to go with your gut. And for everyone listening to this, research the gut brain. We have 3 different brains in our body, and the gut brain is actually one of the most powerful ones there. So when you say you have a gut feeling, there's actually some science behind that to support it. And I'll tell you this, Marty, every mistake I've made, I've looked back and I have allowed other people to influence me away from what my decision was. And there's been some good things with that, but there's been a lot of bad too. So if you're going to be a franchisee, you're going to be a leader. Whether you like it or not, you are going to be a leader. So study it, understand it, make sure it fits you.
Wow, it's great advice, Edward. I never heard that. In 15 years I've been asking the question, and I never heard that before. Is the gut brain. And as you describe it, it makes so much sense, right? Because I'm thinking of my own life, and I've had those experiences as well. Is sometimes where I should have went with my gut feeling, and I didn't, and I just think it's so powerful. So you're the Chief Visionary Officer of the Covery, Edward. So I know you're thinking, down the road. So if I could ask you, where do you see the Covery? If you could look into maybe a crystal ball, if it was like 3 years, 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization?
We're selling really well right now. We're having a lot of people talk to us. We've got a lot of interest. For us right now, it's almost one of those things where, let's pull it back and slow it down just a little bit because the demand is so high. Right. I do see us in 5 years, though, as having, somewhere between 200 to potentially 300 doors open, the country. Right. And I do see us morphing into what we're doing right now is medical in 10 years. And what I mean by that is it's actually treating things. It's not just, it's not prescriptive based as in it's covering up the pain. It's actually fixing it. So I do think in 5 years you're going to see the Covery and a lot of other brands pretty much on every street corner, like you do a Walgreens and a CVS. I also think it's going to be massive in the health club space where people are going to realize I don't need to be working out this much. I need to rest. I need to recover. So what we're seeing right now, it's very, I don't even want to say we're early adapter. We're beyond that by just a little bit, but we're certainly not mainstream. So
absolutely.
I think in 5 years, you are going to see these literally on every corner, and it's going to be a reboot from mental wellness to, like I said earlier, we talked about themes like stem cells to physical therapy, pre-therapy. I think you're going to see these technologies becoming more and more affordable to mainstream, and aggressive treatments coming down the pipe. The doctors that are out there now, a lot of the younger doctors are adapting type of therapies because this stuff wasn't taught in school years ago. Now it's So ultimately, I see not the Covery single-handedly, obviously. I see this entire space aligning what we do with the medical field and just healthy lifestyles altogether. I think we're going to be creating. I hate to say the word superhuman, but I really truly believe that we're going to be able to extend the quality of life. And, one of the big questions is, as we extend the quality of life, what does that mean for people in general? Are we going to want to become more productive? So big, hairy goal, self-care in general in 5 years has completely helped heal the population. It's helping with mental health disorders. It's helping with obesity. It's just helping understand it's not just working out. It's working out and recovering properly. So that's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, a great answer. And as I said, when I was studying the concept of it, I said, oh my God, I have to, have you on the show because, this is different. I interview a lot of like pizza franchises and hamburger franchises and carpet cleaning. So I said, wow, this is something really different, and really exciting. So I was so excited to interview you today. What's the best way, Edward, for our listeners to get more information on the Covery? Of course, there's the franchise opportunity, but even the service itself. Are there any websites you want to plug?
There's really, look at things like, I rely heavily on our vendors for that. So there's something out there, like I said, called Brain Tap. Brain Tap's fascinating. It's interesting to look at. It's something you can use at home. That's one I'll definitely look at. Again, just go to the Covery, thecovery.com. We've got a lot of info and a lot of links to other places. But what I would do if I was anybody, you find some of these things you're interested in. And I hate to say it, but you Google go down that rabbit hole, and you need to educate yourself.
You're right.
Look, there's a lot of info out there that's not right, and there's a lot of info that's sitting there on the edge that could really be right, and bits of it might not be. So just Google this stuff and educate yourself.
That's fantastic. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Edward. I'd like to invite you back, over the next year or two as you continue to grow, because I think this is a very exciting concept.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Marty. Thank you.
This has been my pleasure, Edward, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. We've been hosting franchise interviews now over 8 years and over 400 shows, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today you're going to get to hear from Chris Simic, who is the founder of FranchiseTeacher.com, and Chris has over 30 years of business and franchise experience as an independent business owner, a franchisee, and a franchisor. And Chris said something very profound that we haven't heard on our show in over 8 years. He mentioned that you have to almost work harder to fail at franchising than to succeed in franchising, and he explains why.
Most people, about 90% I think I've seen, buy a business other than they first looked at.
Wow, that's amazing.
So
that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's a big number too, isn't it, Chris? Most people, they go in with these certain expectations and they come out with something different, and I find that fascinating.
I absolutely, it never ceases to astound me, but I think that speaks to the value of franchising as a business model and a business method, because people don't have to be in something just because they know it. And quite candidly, sometimes getting involved in a business that you would rather do, that you were not involved in, allows you the luxury of taking a new career path and to develop something you never would have had the opportunity to had it not been, systematized and prioritized for you. In franchising, it's said that you have to really almost work harder to fail than to succeed, because if you have a good franchise system, if you follow directions, you have to almost purposely not follow them to not do well.
That's true. That's fantastic. We have this great quotes in franchising. I think we're going to put that one in there, Chris. I think that's very original, and it's very true. What advice would you give to our listeners? We find that most of them, they're just beginning their search to buy a franchise, Chris, and we find that, most of them just simply, they don't even know where to begin, like you were saying. What advice would you give to them?
I do, when I speak to people looking at franchise, I give them three different pieces of advice. One, make sure you're looking for a business for the right reason. A lot of people have things happen in their life. They lose a job or something happens, and they react and maybe say, well, okay, maybe I'll go buy a business. That may not be the reason to do it versus having the luxury of selectivity that here's my opportunity that was created by some adversity. Second thing is that they have to make sure that they are able to be franchisees, that not everybody is designed to be able to follow the systems, procedures, and the processes it takes to be a successful franchise owner. And then I tell them quite candidly is pick a couple of the industries and the price ranges that may have interest to you, and then kind of pin down from there, either using the resources of a consultant or a broker or a team member, or on their own. Either way, but I think that if they take their time, follow the steps, and do it for the right reasons, they'll be on a much smoother pathway to success in owning their own business.
That's well said. What's in the future then for Franchise Teacher, Chris? I mean, where do you see the company 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well, Marty, we've been extremely fortunate and blessed that the business has been around, through Century Franchise Group for many years, and our new franchiseteacher.com has taken off. We're representing right now, 7 plus brands. I think in 5 years, our focus will really be even more fine-tuned as the consumer or the prospective business owner is looking for more and more specific information. Breaking down to teach, coach, consult, and advise, I think will be a way for us to assist people in what they need. People, again, don't know what they don't know, but right. I think the information overload sometimes discourages people too early. They say, this is too much for me to process. If we can break it down into bite-sized pieces, I think more and more people, especially the younger generation, who are looking for the advice and the information they want when they want it, I think is going to do nothing more than continue. Then our next business venture, which launches at the end of this year, is looking to capture all the different franchise brands around the world and put them into one place. So we're looking forward to a future. And franchising is going nowhere but growing. As you said for a long time too, the number of franchise opportunities, and the world's getting to be a smaller place. I think you're going to find a lot of opportunities coming in and going out of different marketplaces in different countries, accessible to more people.
That's fantastic. What's the best way, Chris, for our listeners to get more information on franchiseteacher.com? Obviously, franchiseteacher.com, but any numbers you'd like them to call or email addresses?
Well, actually, we appreciate www.franchiseteacher.com. And my business partner, Dave, and I offer them the free 1-hour consultation. Fill out the form and take advantage of it.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Chris, for finally coming on the show. I've been following your career for a long time now, and I have just been very impressed with everything that you've done, So when I saw this, I mentioned to you, we don't typically call people to come on the show, but I had to have you specifically on the show. So it was an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today.
Marty, ditto, and again, congratulations on your PhD doctorate. I have read your thesis, and I would recommend it reading if people can get through
that's fantastic.
The information.
I really appreciate that you read it, too, because that's an honor coming from you, so that's fantastic. Well, I want to thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.